Members of the Health and Human Services Committee. My name is Evenstein, and I'm the Northeast Regional Director for Tech America, the nation's leading technology trade association representing around 1,500 high-tech trade companies. Tech America's membership includes companies from all facets of the wireless technology ecosystem that is revolutionizing our economy and our society, including carriers, handset and chip manufacturers, and software developers. I'd like to thank you for calling this hearing for the opportunity to share our opposition to LD 1706. Tech America member companies are committed to protecting the health and well-being of all their customers, especially children and spectrum owners. The private and public sectors share this goal equally. The proposal at issue today purports to educate the public about radio frequency, or RF, which is energy emitted by cell phones and other mobile devices. This proposal, however, is fundamentally misguided and calls for unnecessary measures that will dangerously confuse or mislead consumers. While you will no doubt hear today, and you've already begun to hear, specifics on scientific levels, regulatory processes, and other specific information, I'd like to leave you with three main points. Impartial experts, as we've heard, say that the body of scientific evidence does not include a public health risk caused by the low level of RF energy emitted by cell phones and mobile devices. 2, the federal government has already set mandatory safety limits on RF energy emissions from wireless devices sold in the U.S. 3, based on the expertise and credibility of some of our most valued and respected standard-setting bodies, requiring companies to add confusing warning labels is unnecessary and misleading, particularly when more complete information is already available online. I'd like to just hit on these 3 points a little bit more depth. The supporters of 1706 claim that the low levels of RF energy emitted from wireless devices pose a potential threat to human health. However, impartial experts, including the American Cancer Society, have concluded that, again, the complete body of reliable, peer-reviewed scientific research supports no such conclusion. These third-party groups, which are made up of experts in the field and which review the research on a regular basis, also include the US FDA, the World Health Organization, and the International Council on Non-Ionizing Radiation Protection, as well as expert health agencies in countries around the world, including the Netherlands, Norway, the United Kingdom, Singapore, Australia, and Sweden. Unless the scientific community changes their stance on this research, this claim is not supported and cannot be the basis for sound public policy. Second, the FCC has already adopted safety limits for RF energy emissions that all wireless devices must comply with in order to be distributed and sold in the U.S. These mandatory standards, as you've heard, incorporate a 50-fold safety factor endorsed by groups such as the FDA and the US EPA, as well as others. Though some who support these claims feel that warning labels are necessary for public knowledge regarding RF energy, it is far more reasonable and efficient to instead promote awareness of the existing federal standards and to ensure the public that federal agencies are already actively monitoring RF energy to protect their health based on reliable scientific evidence to date. Furthermore, the US SAR standard is even lower than that of our European counterparts. Third, while warning consumers of a known hazard would obviously be a good thing, scare tactics or a rush to judgment in absence of sound scientific data is a bad thing. A warning label such as the one under consideration before this committee could be confusing and misleading the consumers and could potentially give the false impression that FCC safety standards are insufficient. These labels would take bits and pieces of the FCC information out of context and thus inaccurately display unsubstantiated health risks. They could even ultimately discourage the use of wireless devices, even in instances where they could improve public safety or save users' lives, as we've already heard today. Such confusion threatens to disrupt the force for innovation that the wireless segment has become as it drives new markets and improves productivity across the U.S. economy. The use of state or local product warnings would also directly create an undue burden on manufacturers and could be impossible to implement over cross markets. In these economic times, we must be particularly careful to avoid baseless policies that disrupt the very growth we are counting upon to drive recovery. While we've discussed California has proposed this type of legislation, however, Maine's abbreviated session ends on April 15th. California's session, on the other hand, extends until August 31st, giving both the legislature and the industry additional time to deliberate on this matter. There is no need to rush into a complex and controversial topic, especially while the research does not bear out the conclusion. Just last session, Maine legislators and residents had the experience of pushing through a ban on marketing to minors that ultimately was the subject of a lawsuit and then soundly rejected by the federal court system. While no one is suggesting here that there's a constitutional issue, rushing through an overbroad and unfounded piece of legislation would likely lead to more negative consequences rather than positive results. Finally, labels are impractical. These cell phone devices are of varying sizes, shape, width, height, Both the devices and the packaging are shrinking, which we agree is a good thing, and the labeling would be unduly burdensome, especially when the science is not conclusive. The Natural Resources Committee in Maine recently heard LD 1631, and among the testimony they most credited was from the cell phone community and technology community, discussing the continuing shrinking of packaging and size and phones, and how that uses less materials as a good thing. And the requirements that would be implemented by this bill would kind of lead to the opposite and slow down and possibly stop the shrinking of these bills, of the packaging. Tech America strongly encourages the members of this committee to vote against LD 1706 and instead open a discussion with the technology industry and the scientific experts to address any questions or issues you may have. Thank you.
Okay, are there any questions? Representative Speckles.
Yeah, do you have any idea why the iPod people put the warning in the fine print on page 6?
I do not. Again, I'd have to look at it, and I'm happy to talk to representatives from Apple. They're one of our member companies, and I can talk to them later today and get back to you.
I'd be very interested in understanding why they saw the need to do that.
Sure.
If it's the evidence is as clear as you say it is.
Okay, we'll find out for you.
Okay, Senator.
Thank you. Can you understand the, certainly if we were to say we were going to do this, we wouldn't necessarily choose the warning label that they've got here. But can you understand the tobacco thing? I mean, everybody is so sensitive to screwing around with that for years and years. And
I do.
now it brings in millions of dollars to Maine, but it's only because so many people have died.
Sure, and at the cost of far too much. The distinction I would draw there is that all the while the manufacturers of tobacco were saying one thing, the scientific community, as I understand it, was saying another thing. Here, in many cases, you're seeing the scientific community aligned with industry, or at best saying it's inconclusive, and to jump ahead before there is some kind of conclusive evidence, in my opinion, would be a mistake.
Thank you.